Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. My name is Andrew Townsend. I'm the Campaign Marketing Manager here at eLearning Brothers. Today's session is going to be really exciting. We're talking about everything you need to know about variables, but we're too afraid to ask. It's going to be a really exciting topic, and we're excited that you've joined us to learn more about it. This session will be recorded. We will email a copy of it out to everybody who has registered, so you'll be able to get this in your email and review it at a later date as you wish. If you have questions during the webinar, we will be ready to answer questions using the questions panel. We'll also be able to take your comments there and bring them up to our presenter as we need to. So please do use that questions panel as a part of the GoToWebinar control panel there. I also want to talk before I introduce our speaker. Lectora 21 has launched its early access. If you would like to be a part of that early access, just go to elearningbrothers.com. Also, I will paste a link in the chat if you'd like to click on that and you can join. In fact, let me just do that right now. Got it here. There we go. So I just sent it out in the chat. You can click that if you'd like to sign up for early access to Lectora 21. All right, so today to talk to us about variables, we have Domenic Caloia, Senior Learning Developer at Johnson Controls. Thanks for joining us, Domenic. And without further ado, I'm going to pass the screen and the presentation over to you.
Welcome, everyone. Everything you ever needed to know about variables, but were afraid to ask. Wow, that is mighty impressive title. So let me start off by setting some expectations. What we're going to cover today, I'm going to start very simple and then build up to something very, very complex. This way, no matter where you stand in your experience with variables, which reminds me, Andrew, do we have a poll to find out from the audience as I'm speaking?
Sure, I'll go ahead and launch that. Let us know what your confidence level is currently with variables.
I like to know so I could adapt how much time I spend on it. Then keeping in mind that there are also learners that are not attending live and will be looking at this afterwards, I want to make sure that I briefly touch upon the very, very beginning, what is a variable, to include people who may never have used variables before. But for those that have used variables, be patient, not for too long, because I'm very quickly going to show a lot of examples that get increasingly more complex and more involved and more powerful and more impressive. Until finally, we're going to end talking about artificial intelligence, algorithms, adaptive learning, personalized learning, the real serious stuff that is cutting edge. And my goal is to show you how something as simple as a variable can be used to make very, very complex interactions. So I'm hoping that everyone, regardless of experience level, will get something out of this webinar.
So of our audience, 41% say that they are currently creating their own variables. 33% said they use standard default variables. 20% said, what is a variable? So there's 20% of our audience that's pretty beginner on this, and then 6% of our audience are using advanced variables in their sleep.
How many? What percentage?
6%.
6%. Okay. If I get into trouble, guys, I'm going to count on that 6% to help me out. Creating variables in your sleep. Okay, that's pretty awesome. But let's start off with the very basics.
Let me, I'm not seeing your screen. Let me make sure that we can pass that over to you here.
Okay.
There we go. Looks great.
All right. What is a variable, folks? Very simply, a variable is a container that could hold just about anything. For example, a glass could hold wine, water, maybe not even a liquid. You could throw paper clips in it, or it could be totally empty. So a variable is a container. In e-learning, it's very simple to create your own variable. You give it a name, you give it some properties, you say what it's going to start off with. Is it going to start off with the glass being half full, empty, totally full? So you decide when you create a variable. And since you gave it a name, you use that name to reference it as you build your e-learning. Lectora, Storyline, any e-learning platform is going to have standard built-in variables. What that means is there's a variable that holds some content that is not always the same. If you create a text box in an e-learning program, whatever you type into that text box, that's the way it's going to be. It's not going to change unless you, the instructional designer, change it. If you insert an image, that's the image everyone's going to see. But with a variable, it can change depending upon what happens. So in the example you're seeing on the screen, this is page number 4, okay? The 4 is a variable. And let me shrink this down and go over to Lectura. And now you're seeing the actual code. When I'm developing the course, I would type in, this is page number, and then I'd reference the built-in default variable that comes with Lectura, page and chapter. And how do I reference it? Capital VAR, and I put the name of the variable in parentheses. That's how I inserted a page number onto my page. With Storyline, it's just about the same thing. This is page number, and instead of a capital VAR in parentheses, it puts the variable name in quotes. And that's what a lot of people are doing using the built-in variables. And each software program is going to have its own collection of built-in variables. So to sum up, by using a standard variable that comes with your development program, you could insert something that is not always the same, like a text box or picture, but changes. In the example I'm showing, the page number is going to change depending upon whether you're on page 1, 2, or 22. Hopefully, that's pretty simple to understand. Now let's go to simple variables that we create on our own. Remember, a variable is something that contains whatever you want it to contain. So in this example on the screen, we'll have a variable, we'll call it v. Okay, if the variable v has a 0, or it may have a 1. It could be false or true. It could be red or blue, whatever you want. What's important about having something that changes is that the learner is going through your course. Depending upon that variable, they may see something different. So for example, if it's a 0, 1, depending upon what the learner did to change that variable, which means if I click on something, I can say, if you click on this button, change variable v to 0. Or if you click on another button, change the variable to 1. Why is that important? Because after they make that change and you know what the user clicked on, you're going to change your learning content. So for example, a 0 may have you hide something. A 1 may have you show something. If you're using the true false, a true may show a congratulations, you got this correct. A false may show sorry, you may want to try again. If you're building a quiz or an exam or a survey in your development tool, you're probably thinking to yourself, oh yeah, when I put those questions in and people get it right or wrong, there's a feedback option. I could customize it. So what do I need to use variables for? Since you're using something, it's nice to know that the program, even though it's pre-built for you, is using variables. And if you want to do something that and not be limited to what's in the box and you want to think outside the box, you can make very creative interactions by using variables. Sort of like building your own true-false situation. If it's red and blue, depending upon what they click on, you may have them go back or go forward, whatever the case may be. Enough talk. Let's see it in action. Pick your favorite color. And then I have a click 3 times here. So if I click on blue, I click, and I click, and all the shapes come in blue. If I click on red, and I click, and I click, and I click, everything comes in red. Which means the learner in your course is going to see maybe not the same thing as another learner, because they may not, another learner may not have clicked on the same button. And watch this. I click on blue. Now, what if I change my color? Click on red and click on blue. Now, this is very interesting. I had created this a while ago, and when I was looking at it, I'm thinking to myself, wow, these shapes remind me of something. They remind me of the one-armed bandit the slot machines in a casino. And I'm thinking to myself, gee, if I had thought about it, I could have made these like oranges and grapefruits and bananas. And depending upon what the user clicked on, how many times, what would they have to click on to get 3 oranges and win a jackpot? And I'm thinking to myself, that would be a cool animation, a cool interaction to create for a learning experience. Instead of just clicking on a color, blue or red, what if they had to answer a question? So now if I answer 3 questions in a row correctly, I get an orange, I get an orange, and I get an orange. But if I click on a wrong answer, just like if I click on a red, I'm not going to get a blue. If I click on a blue, I'm not going to get a red. If I click on a wrong answer, I'm not going to get the orange. So 3 correct answers gives me 3 oranges, and then I can have an animation pop up, congratulations, and so on and so forth. I leave it to your instructional design imagination, how you can use simple variables. We haven't gotten to the complex part yet, guys. This is simple, and I'm envisioning how I could turn this into a very interesting interaction. Any comments at this point, Andrew? Any questions?
Nope, no questions at this time. Looks like we're going good.
Okay. Now let's kick up the pace a little bit and get a little more complex. So we finished talking about a simple variable where I create a container, a variable, I have it say something, and because it changes, I could have my learning content change. That's simple, and everyone's with me. A compound variable is either having more than one variable or having one variable with more than one pieces of content in it. I'm going to demonstrate what that is. But what's important about using compound variables is that it enables you to have a lot more options, which means the course can be a lot more adaptable and it's much more personalized. And if you guys have heard me speak before, my niche, my forte, my passion is adaptive, personalized learning. The way compound variables work is this way. If there's more than one variable, I may have one variable, in this case A, that could be a 0 or a 1. And then I could modify one variable. Okay, now modify the variable. I could have it, depending upon whether it's a 0 or 1, I could set it to equal something. I could add a number. I could append a value. Now, the difference is I could have a variable equal something. I could, if I'm using numbers, I could say every time someone clicks on something, add a 1. So I could actually be counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For example, if I wanted to track how many attempts people made on solving a riddle, every time they clicked on submitted an answer or submitted what they thought was the correct answer, it would add 1 to that. Appending, I'm going to show you a good example of appending a value to a variable. More than 2 variables in the variable, I'm going to show you an example for tracking progress of a video. If a user completes chapter 1, add to the variable A. If a user finishes chapter 2, add B. If the user finishes chapter 3, add AC. Your variable is going to contain the options I have there. If they only look at one chapter, the variable will contain either an A or B or C. You have 3 chapters, that's going to be your options. If the learner views 2 chapters, it could be an A and a B. It could be an A and a C. Maybe they skip the 2nd chapter. Or it could be a B and a C. Maybe they skip the 1st chapter. And you're saying you may be saying, how do you skip chapter 1 and get to chapter 2 or 3? It's up to you guys. Maybe you have a pre-test and they know the simple stuff and you're not going to require them to take the chapter 1. Maybe it's not a linear course and there's 3 different subjects and you're allowing users to take them in any order and the chapters are optional. So here's a way of tracking what the user actually did in the course. And of course, in some cultures, they want to learn everything. They don't want to leave anything untouched, and you would get an A, B, and C in that variable. Now let's switch over to demo mode. Here I have an example. Now, this is more than one variable. My first variable is going to be department, technical or sales. I'm going to click on technical. My second variable is going to be select the level, beginner, intermediate, or advanced. We'll start with beginner. And then how would you like to learn? Get this, different learning styles. This particular learner is a beginner, technical learner, and they want to learn by reading, so they click on text, and the result is this one highlights. It's blue for technical, it says beginner, okay? If it was a salesperson, and I clicked on sales, and let's say intermediate and text, and I click on result, what's happening here is every time I click on variable 1, 2, or 3, whatever I clicked on is updating the variable. Then when I click on result, it's checking. If I clicked on technical, I'm going to show you something in blue. If I clicked on the level, well, let's show you if we do sales and advanced and video. Now the video symbol lights up. It lights up in green, indicating it's sales. It has the 3 dots highlighted here, which tells me it's advanced. If it was sales and beginner and video, only one light lights up. So basically, for each of these 3 categories, the text, images, and video, it could be either blue or green, depending upon whether someone's a technical learner or a sales learner. And the level is going to be, the icon is going to change slightly for whether they're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced learner. What does that mean for you as an instructional designer? You could create one course that allows different people to learn different content. The only content that I'm changing here for visual purposes is I'm changing the icon and I'm changing the color. That's all I'm changing. But what if you were actually changing an entire page or several pages or changing a whole interaction or showing a totally different training video? You would be totally dramatically changing the learning experience based upon the selections that the user made. It could be voluntary selections where you're asking them to click on things like this does, or it could be involuntary where there's interactions and quiz questions and knowledge checks where if they don't know something, they're not going to get certain content. And for the 6% that create complex variables in their sleep, okay, you'd be clicking on certain options that's going to show you only the advanced content, and we're going to bypass the wine glass in the middle. Any questions at this point? Okay.
One question has come up. They wanted to know, and I'm sure this is more of how you use them than the way they are intrinsically, but can variables be used and the course still be accessible, 508 compliant?
Yes.
Okay, so it really just depends on how you're designing it.
Yeah, the variable action is going to be behind the scenes. So basically, if this is going to be 501 compliant, I'd have to be concerned about the colors and the images that I use. I have to make sure that all tags are in there. And I have to make sure there'll be an alternate method for selecting that drop-down list right here, other than using the mouse. So with all those 508 compliance criteria that you're used to, that'll take care of the compliance. The variables work behind the scenes.
Awesome. That's all the questions we've got right now.
Okay. Now let's take a look at what we can do. And as I'm talking, I'm going to click the play button. I have a 1 minute timer going on. I'm not timing myself. I'm not timing you. I just want to demonstrate something. This is a video that's playing. And I've got a variable that can hold more than one piece of content. Right now, we have 15 seconds into the video, and where it says sections viewed, that variable is holding an A, telling me that the viewer has watched the first 15 seconds. And now that I know that now that I see that the B is there, the viewer has watched the second 15 seconds. Now, when I say watched, a variable is not going to know if the eyes are focused on the screen. The variable is not going to, there's no way of telling if someone's multitasking and chatting away or checking their Facebook, or if it gets interrupted by someone in the family now they're all working from home. There's no way of knowing that. So actually what I'm tracking is what sections of the video have played. And now that the 1 minute is done, I'm seeing A, B, C, D. You earn a letter every 15 seconds. And what I'm doing with the variable is I'm appending. So I added A to an empty container, and all I had was an A. When I added a B, it didn't change to B. I still have my A, and I have the B in there. So this is a nice way of checking progress. Let's play this video again, but this time I'm not going to let it play straight through. I'm going to play that. I'm kind of bored with this. I mean, it's not really a fascinating video, let's face it. Okay, so we may want to cut through and finish this a second time around in a lot less than a minute. So now I started the video and I'm thinking, oh, what is a variable? I'm advanced. I got to go further into this. So I'm going to move it up to, I'm at the 29-second mark. 29-second mark. Remember, at 30 seconds, I earned a B, but I didn't get my B. How come? Well, I only watched 1 second of section B and didn't qualify. I didn't earn that. But as I'm talking, I went through a whole 15 seconds of the third quadrant, and I earned the C, and it's about to reach the end, and I'm going to earn the D. Now, there's a lot of things I could say about this that's not quite as simple as the built-in variables, but one of the things is I now know that the learner skipped the first half of this video. What does that mean to me as an instructional designer? Or what is that going to mean for your stakeholders? If you capture this information and then aggregate it and present it to your stakeholders, management can see and actually learn something about the learning audience. If 90% are skipping over the easy parts, it tells them that we need to spend less time on the simple basic stuff and focus more of our training on the advanced material, because that's what our learners, that's what our employees need. In this course, we've got 20%, what is a variable? So I would expect that if you were going through this course and it was tracked like this, that 20% of the population would be staying in the beginning segments and learning the basics. And then 6% will be skipping through sections 1, 2, 3, 4, and just want to focus on the real advanced stuff at the end. Those kind of metrics can be very valuable in improving your learning and increasing the ROI for your organization. Any questions at this point?
Yes, one webinar or one question has come up. Can these variables be stored when a learner leaves a course and then be recalled when they come back? And is there a way to store variable value between different courses inside the same LMS using either SCORM or XAPI?
I have not tried that. Well, in one way, I haven't tried it. When I publish the SCORM in Lectora and with Storyline, there's an option to retain values. So I'm actually thinking of a way where I can use variables, custom variables, where yes, I can retain that information, okay? And when the user comes back and they say, yes, I want to continue where I left off, and they're halfway through the course, all the previous variables will be remembered. It may be a little tricky, but it can be done. With XAPI, it should be easier. It depends on your learning platform and how they do the retention. The other thing that I've done extensively is I've saved results to Google Docs. So no matter where they stop, that information is going to be permanently available on Google Docs. Retrieving it from the learner's point of view and recapturing that might be kind of tricky.
Okay, that brings up another question here then. When you're utilizing all of these variables, if they are course specific, if they're just to change the way the users viewing and getting the course, I think SCORM would work fine. But if you're wanting to report on each of these variables, would you need to use XAPI as opposed to SCORM?
No, XAPI is great, but I do a lot of tracking and reporting using Google Docs. So all this variable data that I want to, as a matter of fact, tracking progress is something I use extensively in adaptive learning. If you have a linear course where they go through chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4, knowing if a user ended at 2, 3, or 4, it's okay. It's very limited. But when you have a course that adapts and you want to learn and you want to know what areas a learner spent more time in, what I'm showing you right now, that variable that has the C and D, I could upload that to Google Docs. And when I look at the aggregate of 100, 500, 1,000 learners, then I could start getting metrics on my entire learning audience. And I can know what percentage went to beginning, middle, the end, or went through the whole thing. And that's without using XAPI.
So that's a way to use Google Docs instead of XAPI. So your SCORM is still delivering a pass-fail information to your LMS or your wherever you're going, but the actual variable data is then being managed by your Google Docs. And if you were using XAPI and your LMS allowed for it, you could probably do that same tracking on the LMS side.
Now, everything I'm showing you, I happen to create using Lectora. It happens to be my favorite tool, and it's a lot easier to do this type of work. However, with everything I'm explaining today and demonstrating today can be done in your favorite tool. It's just a matter of how easy or difficult that is.
The one other question that comes up pretty often whenever we see cool stuff in these webinars is how long did it take you to develop this variable stuff? So like the last slide, not this one, but the one before, how long did it take you to build that system?
Oh, yeah. Now, this particular one, let me show you. Okay, so this particular one, if you take a look on the left-hand side, from the highlight all the way down, there's a lot of scripting in here and a lot of variables. What I'm doing, this is kind of complex, and this took a while to build out. And this is actually my second version. The first version that I did just was very simple. At 15 seconds, you get an A. At 30 seconds, you get a B. But then I'm talking to people, and they're like, well, did they actually watch that section? So what I'm actually doing is I've got a variable that is counting 1, 2, 3 every second. And if you get to 15, you get the letter, which means if you don't watch the whole thing, you don't get the letter. That's why when I skipped ahead, I was just shy of the 30-second mark. You know, I didn't get to see, even though I hit that 30-second point. So this is a little bit more complex, and it took more time to build out because I'm tracking time as well as awarding letters. And the previous one, however, this one here, this was a lot easier to do. The first, I created 3 variables. The first variable is either a T or an S. Am I storing a T for technical or an S for sales? The second variable is got 3 options, and I forget what I used, a 1, 2, or 3 for beginning, intermediate, and advanced. And the third variable, a T, an I, or a V for video. So storing those variables based on user clicks is very simple. Then the result, what the result is doing is it's checking each one of the variables. And if I have a technical, a beginner, and an advanced, then I show a certain image. So one of the things that took a while to create is I had to create a different image, 3 images for each one of these, 9 different images. So basically understanding the logic and how variables work, doesn't take long at all to create. If I wanted to turn that other one into a slot machine, now you want fancy graphics, you want animation for those bananas to spin around. So you can get really involved and spend a lot of time on these things if you choose to.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
What is an algorithm? Where the heck did algorithm come from when we're learning variables? An algorithm is a step-by-step process for solving a problem or getting some result or doing some sort of analysis. Don't worry, don't study the chart. I picked up this graphic someplace because I just wanted to show a whole bunch of branching. Pretty much everywhere you see a branch, it's a variable at work. Okay, is it a 0? Is it a 1? Is it a true? Is it a false? Is it a yes? Is it a no? And based upon that, something different is going to happen. And yeah, you're not limited to variables with only 2 options. It could be multiple options. So let's look at something that we can relate to. The example I showed earlier with the technical and the sales. So I had a department variable that could only be technical or sales. For each one of these, there were 3 options for level: beginner, intermediate, or advanced. That's my second variable. And my third variable also had 3 options: text, images, or video. By multiplying the 2 options times the 3 options times the 3 options for the third variable, there's 18 different possible results that could take place. And remember, in my example, my results are very simple. I'm showing you a different color icon, a different shape, in a different position. In your example, it could be 18 different exams, 18 different interactions, 18 different videos, 18 different chapters, sections of learning content that you took someone to. So for example, in a compliance program, some companies, every year, it's compliance time. Okay, January, everyone has to take this course, whether it be on ethics or safety or whatever. Now, you have some people that are brand new to the company, and they're going to say, well, they should select beginner level. They get everything explained. Someone that's been with the company for a year or 2 may select intermediate, and some of the executives may say, I know everything. I run this company. I'm going to click advanced. Yeah, I haven't got time for this. But legally, it's compliance. I got to take it. Wouldn't it be nice to tell your upper management that they could breeze through this course in a few minutes? However, in a truly adaptive course, which if you guys want to learn that, I've got a whole session dedicated to really personalizing learning. And there's more information on my blog. You get that for free. But if you really want to make something really personalized, then you let people have these options, not just once. So this way, if the executive says, I know everything, click on super advanced, just give me the questions, let me answer them correctly, I'll breeze through this in 5 minutes. They click, and all of a sudden it's like, ooh, this is a new product, and I'm forgetting the terminology. Brain freeze. At a click of a button, they could switch from advanced to intermediate, get a little more information. Okay, I get it, and then switch back to advanced mode. And basically, in this small little demo, there's 18 different possible results, and that's just on one interaction. Imagine if you had 3, 4, or 5 of these, and imagine if you added some more options in the variable. You can make something really, really complex, and with that, really, really personalized. Which brings me to adaptive artificial intelligence algorithms. Variables are used to store data. We learned that already. Multiple variables make complex decisions possible. Remember that complicated chart that I said you didn't have to look out too closely with all the orange boxes and the branching all over the place? We're talking about a lot of variables and a lot of branching. And it takes a lot of planning. The results for your learning is they're going to be highly adaptive. And the result for your learners is going to be personalized learning. This is something that is cutting edge. This is something that most of us are not doing. But if you want to do it, you could start experimenting with variables. It's an easy way of getting involved in this. Now, in this example, adaptive exams. Wouldn't it be nice to not only personalize the learning content, but then personalize the exam based upon how much the user demonstrated that they knew something or didn't know something? So as the learner's going through the courses, unbeknownst to them, they're actually going to determine what kind of exam that they get. So in this example, variables can be used to create personalized learning. We know that already, that's true. Okay. Compound variables use more than one action, variable, option. We know it's variable. What is a step-by-step procedure for solving a problem or accomplishing some end? Well, we just learned that. And that is, let me spell it correctly, algorithm. So here's my questions. Now let's get my grade. I got a 3. That means I got them all correct. My possible scores are going to be a 1 or a 3, or a -1 or a -3. I get 1 point if I get it right. I get subtracted a point if I get it wrong. So if I get the first one correct, I get 1. If I get the second one wrong, that's a -1, so I got 0. If I get the third one right, I got 1, which gives me a 1. Now, if I click on Take Exam, this is test 1. I got this test because I passed. Let's go back and let's fail. So if I click this to false, and I click this to option, and I'll keep this one correct. Well, first of all, let me try it again, clear that out. So false, so now I got 2 wrong answers and a right answer. 2 wrong and a right. That should give me a -1. So if I grade it, I get a -1. I take the exam. It's a totally different exam. So how did I build this? You can see I've got 3 variables. And when I grade it, I'm checking each question. Did I get the first question right or wrong? If I got it right, I get 1 added to my grade. If I get it wrong, I get 1 subtracted from my grade. And that's how the score appears. And when I say grade questions, I'm calculating that variable. So I got 3 questions, and each question by default has its own variable. You don't have to create it. You put a survey or a quiz or an exam into your course. Automatically, each question has its own variable. So now I just got to get the name of that variable, and I check, is the question 1 variable right or wrong, and so on and so forth for the other 2. As I total up, I have another variable that stores my score. When I click on grade, I change this text field and update it. I say change the contents to equal my variable total score, and that's how I show that. Then when I say take my exam, it's if my score is a 1 or a 3, go to exam 1. You passed. If my total score is a -1 or -3, and it shows that I did not know so much, then I get a different exam. Any questions at this point?
There is one question. Wouldn't compound variables use more than one value instead of variables? So if you're doing a compound variable, let's see, wouldn't compound variables use more than one value instead of variable? That's how the question is stated.
Okay, yes. I could have a variable that can store multiple items. I can have a variable. If question 1 was true, I could store an A. If it was false, I could store a B. I could score a C or a D for the second one, an E and an F for the third one if I wanted to. And then I could say if my variable has an A, a C, and an E, you got 100%. I could do that. Okay, since my variables for these questions are already set up, numbers work great. Okay, so and the point is, there's typically more than one way of doing something, and if you're more comfortable doing it one way as opposed to another, that's perfectly fine. Now,
Great.
a question that has come up in the past is, I just showed how, depending on what the user did in a course, they came to a certain exam. Another example of how this can be used is, if I'm seeing that someone is looking at a lot of technical information, I know right away that if they've been studying technical, I should give them the technical exam. If they're looking at a lot of sales information, I should show them the sales exam. But what if I actually wanted to change individual questions in the exam to really personalize the exam? What I did in this example is I created 2 different exams. And if you passed, you got one exam. If you failed, you got another exam. Now I'm going to show you something that's a little more complex, a little more intricate, on how you can actually dynamically create a custom exam based upon what the learner knows or does not know as they're going through the course. And I'm looking at the time. We're good. We're just about good with the time. Lectora is great. Now here's my questions. Lectora is great because it is flexible and powerful. I'll be really in trouble if I didn't click true here. How many options do algorithms employ? 2, many, or none? Let's go with many. What is a container called that holds data that is subject to change or being changed? I'm going to put algorithm. Okay, did I get 100? Probably not. Let me take the exam. Now here's where it gets interesting. I got the first 2 questions correct. And how am I telling you that? The first 2 questions are in black. All right. The third question is in red, and I'm only changing the color for demonstration purposes. What I'm actually doing is I'm actually deciding, based upon the answers that I just gave, based upon the answers, my exam is being personalized, and I'm getting different questions. All right. The correct answer for this third one was, okay, what is a container called that holds data that is subject to change, being changed? This is the exact same question that I just had, and I got it wrong. If my course detected when wrong, give more information. Don't just say wrong, but tell them why they were wrong and give them the correct information. Now, you would hope that a learner that got something wrong and then was told why it was wrong and was given the correct explanation, you would hope when they came to the final exam, they would have that right. And guys, that is proof that your program is succeeding in training and that people are actually learning. I didn't know it when I started the course. I didn't quite get it the first time you told me, or I missed it. I was sidetracked. I got it wrong, but when it came down to the final exam, I aced it. I got it right. All right. So if I return and go back, let's try it again, and let's get the first 2 wrong. Sorry about that. I'm going to click wrong there. I'm going to click make that one wrong. And this is going to be correct. Variable. I'm going to take the exam. Now you see that the first 2 are red, which I'm proving to you and demonstrating to you that I've got the ability to, using variables, to say, depending upon my answer, I'm going to set a variable right or wrong. I'm going to check the right or wrong, and then depending upon whether you get it right or wrong, I'm then going to change the question. And now I've got the first two are red questions and not black questions. And if you notice, these are the same questions that I had earlier because I didn't get it right before. Hopefully I get it right now. Any questions at this point?
Nope, we're good.
Wow, you guys are really smart. Okay, now we come to something that I had a lot of fun playing around with. Let me take a look at my notes. So now we have a chatbot. She's smart, Susie. She is intelligent. Now, this is a chatbot for this course. So I'm not going to ask her what the weather is in Texas. I'm not going to ask her how the stock market's doing. This is going to be questions about the course. So what is a variable? I'm going to type my question in here. And click submit. A variable is a container that holds data that can be changed. Oh, okay, so she's pretty smart. Let's ask her another question. What is the best tool for instructional design? And submit. Lectora is the most intelligent design tool for creating adaptive training and personalized learning. Guys, I apologize if this is sound like a commercial. I do not work for E-Learning Brothers. I don't work for Lectora. But honestly, it's my preferred tool. But what you're seeing,
an opinionated virtual assistant.
Yeah. I mean, any other questions? I mean, what else can we ask Smart Susie?
There's a question here. Is this assistant single?
You got that question? Okay. That's something probably a lot of guys are going to want to know. Are you single?
Sounds like she's married to Lectora.
I think you should know that my fiance is a mixed martial arts expert and he is very jealous.
Sorry, y'all.
Okay, guys, I told you I had a lot of fun creating this, but a couple of things. This is not easy. This requires anticipating questions and using variables. And the variables are going to say, if the question that I type into this box, if it contains the word variable, then you know there's some question about variable. So have a pre-planned answer. In this case, a variable is a container that holds data that can be changed. If you asked me, if we asked Susie, how complicated can a variable get? You're still going to get the same answer. All right. So what's complicated about this is not so much the variables, but anticipating the possible questions your learner may ask when they get to this point in the course and having responses ready made. Now, my wife, when she asks a question into her Apple iPhone, okay, lots of times this is what I found out. And it's like, that is so AI dumb, okay, is smart in one way, but by having very bland, generic wording, this is what I found, okay? And then there's a link to a web page or something. And half the time, it doesn't really answer the question that's being asked, but it's better than saying, I don't know. So to create an intelligent chatbot using variables in a limited way, it's not so difficult, but the better you want it to be, the more questions you want it to answer, the more diversity you want it to have. I mean, the are you single, it was put in there for fun, okay, just to make it seem more humane. But what always drives me crazy is when someone's interacting with a computer. What is the weather outside right now? It's like, hello, all you have to do is say weather. and it's going to give you the temperature outside. It's not going to give you the temperature in another state or another part of the world unless you combine the temperature with a location. Temperature, New York City. Temperature, Frankfurt, Germany. Okay, then you're going to get temperature in that area. Why? Because the artificial intelligence is not actually human intelligence. It's not understanding the human structure. We're not quite at that point yet. So it's based on analyzing words and phrases. We can use variables to do the same thing, which is what I demonstrated here.
So really, in this more of an open-ended sort of thing, it's about anticipation, anticipating what you're going to get.
Realistically, as instructional designers, we want to create learning experiences that are engaging and also educational. The goal here is not to develop a smart chatbot that's going to know everything about a particular subject. If you're really serious about making a really, really in-depth chatbot, use a third-party chat tool and incorporate it into your e-learning. But if you just say, look, I've given my learners a chunk of information, a limited amount. Now I want them to have some fun. And since I have a variable that tracks the question that was typed in, what if I stored that in another variable, and then I sent it up to Google Docs, or I sent it to sent it out as an XAPI statement where I could run reports on it later on. If I know what questions my learners are asking, even if I hadn't anticipated the question, if I've got the questions, I can now make a better chatbot. I now make a better learning. I can now do better at creating a course that produces a positive ROI.
We had somebody say this would be a good application of this type of thing would be a subject matter expert FAQ. So, you finish, you say, you have any questions for an expert? Ask an expert. You can ask a bunch of questions and you've got those pre-programmed in. So that is a clever way to use it. I like it.
Yeah, and if you had something where I've taught you some content and I asked you, what would you like to learn more about? Algorithms, variables, compound variables, and you just typed in a question. It's like, how do I use compound variables? And if I was looking for how and compound variables, I'll give you one answer. If I was looking for compound variables, I'll give you another answer. So by having 2 or 3 different answers prepared and kind of structuring the page and guiding the learner to only ask limited types of questions, you could have something that's kind of fun and engaging. And then also have the option, it's, I'm not sure, that's covered in a different course, or we'll have to pass that on to our department. I have some sort of a default if they ask a question that you didn't anticipate. In this case, if I ask how is the weather, I'll just put in temperature, because I'm not expecting her to give an answer to that. And I click submit. Okay, I didn't understand the question. And this variable right here has all my questions and answers. If I save that and I exported that, or I sent that out to a stakeholder via email, they'd have all the questions right there.
Very cool. There are a couple of questions. We're kind of running out of time, so I don't think we'll be able to dive into this very deeply, but people would love to see the back end of the virtual assistant, how you built that out. And that may be, I think that may be a whole other webinar to dive in and dig into something that deep.
The good news is, take a snapshot of this slide, okay? The source file for this is, now I did some tweaking to this one, and I don't know when I'll get it uploaded, but on my website, the previous version, which is almost identical, is already up on the website. And you go to learnerintelligence.org, you click on the free resources tab, you put in your information, and you'll have instant access to all my free resources. There's my LinkedIn down here. I encourage you to connect with me on LinkedIn. Why? We all want that, right? You know, build a community of fellow programmers and stuff like that. To the 6% that create variables in their sleep, if you could go on my website, send me a little message, let me know, did you learn anything? Was it informative to you? Share what you guys are doing, some of the advanced stuff that you're doing. We can learn from each other. And I want to thank Andrew, Christy, eLearning Brothers for having me on, and hopefully see you again in 21.
Yes, yes. Just a quick reminder, you can get early access to Lectora 21. You can visit elearningbrothers.com to learn more about that. Oh, there's one other question here that I think we can address. I guess it's not really a question, it's a statement. And I'd love to get your opinion on this, Dominic. This is, I think that another value for using variables the way Dominic is using is that he eliminates the need to use different web technologies like Ajax, for example, and or the need to render a web page based on values that are driven from a database. So it allows you to have everything self-contained. That's true. Are there other benefits that you can think of, Dominic, that you haven't already talked about to using variables?
Well, it's dynamic. I know I have a meeting coming up next week at my company. They want to talk about static versus dynamic courses, and I'm like, really? I go, I wonder what the stakeholders want me to do. But making something dynamic, something that changes, something that personalizes the learning. You can read all about it on my blog. I mean, that's something I specialize in, and that's the real power. And whoever posted that comment, yeah, that's true. We're not using Ajax tying into databases.
Excellent. All right, well, we'll wrap up here. I do want to mention to our awesome audience here, Lectora 21 early access, elearningbrothers.com. We launched our new community. So the Trivantis community is gone. There's now an eLearning Brothers Rockstars community. We moved everything over, so you'll now access it in the Rockstars community. And we have two contests going on right there. One right now, we'd love to see your coolest course. Maybe it's a cool use of variables. We had one person submit a course that was a movie trivia game, an icebreaker kind of thing. It was really, really cool. So submit. There's been a couple others, but submit into that contest, and there's money on the line if you'd like some money. So go ahead and submit your coolest course. We're also, the other contest is we would like to see instructor-led training that has been converted into e-learning. Thanks to this pandemic, we've seen a lot of people going from the in-classroom training into online training, and we'd love to see how you converted it. And we're giving away, like I said, cash prizes for that as well. So 2 reasons of many to join the eLearning Brothers Rockstars community and submit into a contest there. Also, as you see on the screen, if you're looking for Lectora, who happens to be the virtual assistant's favorite, I guess, you can try that out at elearningbrothers.com as well. We've got the authoring suites that come with Lectora, the entire asset library, and Scenario VR. That is the Platinum suite, but we have other packages as well to make things affordable and meet your needs. So thanks again, Dominic. This has been great. Thanks everybody for joining us. We'll go ahead and wrap up, and we'll see you guys next time.